29th of October 2023. It's mild in Ireland. It's raining quite a lot outside right at the minute. And this is the UK renewable energy racket proven. And this comes from an article in here. Wind energy confirms a great green lie. So I've been pointing out that all of this is all a green lie. And this is from Net Zero Watch. But the articles in it are direct quotes, so it's not just an opinion thing. So what it says is that campaign groups Net Zero says that the wind industry has effectively admitted that it has been deceiving the British public. Now, this is about Great Britain, but we have a very close copy of their scheme here, public, over the cost of renewable transition, right? RWE, that's a German crowd, Renewables, has just told the government that it needs its subsidy price to rise 70%. 70%. It needs a rise of 70%, right? And I've been talking about them being in financial difficulties. If any more wind farms are to be built. Now, this is an article in on GB News, right? Now, you mightn't be able to see it there. I'm just I'll post the links underneath later on. And it says, wind farms earn hundreds of millions more from energy crisis after delaying government subsidy contracts. Now, you can buy any newspaper. You can do anything on any television or any radio all over the world with up to 7.5 billion people in this world. And I am claiming I'm the only one can actually bring to you and explain the real truth. But it takes me time to find out exactly what's going on. Now, but this confirms what I've been saying to you is right. Now, according to a new analysis, the taxpayer could be £500 million worse off due to recently revealed delay in just one wind farm. The government has urged developers to act fairly. Here we have the government urging developers to act fairly. Why are we doing that? Appealing to them to act fairly. I thought that it was up to them to bring out a renewable energy and an ordinary electricity scheme that rewards them for what they get and pays them, and that's it. But here we are appealing to them. Please, oh please, this is what they're at, right? So what it says is the government has urged developers to act fairly. Some hope of that. After some of the UK's largest wind farms delayed taking up green government contracts, potentially allowing them to earn hundreds of millions of pounds more from consumers during the energy crisis. Now, I'll bet you, if you're an ordinary consumer of electricity, that is puzzling. And my job here is that it won't be puzzling to you anymore. According to a new analysis, the taxpayer could be £500 million worse off due to recently revealed delays in one wind farm, which generous green contracts allowed for. So they gave them all they wanted. Conservatives, Labour, you write the rules, we'll sign them. Labour MP told GP News the revelations. I have been 10 years trying to get this across to Northern Ireland politicians, to British politicians, and to Irish politicians. And now it's the revelations. Oh, it's a revelation. Showed the government's energy strategy was in tatters. No, it's not. It's our energy problem, our electricity, the bit of light, and the bit of electricity for the radio and all that. That's what's in tatters. The government is getting their pension. They don't give two tuppenny dams and never will. New wind farms have begun selling electricity into the grid at low-cost subsidy deal prices agreed with the government as expected. No new wind farms have begun selling electricity to the grid at the low-cost subsidy deal prices. They agreed with a price. This is what you get. It's a floor price. It's a guaranteed price. At the time they agreed, it was way above the price for fossil fuel. Fossil fuel was about 56, 57 pennies in British money, in pounds, and they were giving them something like 57. So they were giving them more. Whatever the fossil fuel price was, it was above that generally, and they give them that deal, and no wind farm company is accepting it. So the subsidy agreed with the government. As expected, dates since the energy crisis began, as expected. And it dates since the energy crisis began. Well, sure, when is that? Is that about 2021? Instead selling at the higher market prices, GB News can reveal. Now, I'll be explaining all this, so don't worry, we'll get this. I just want to read it to you. The government guaranteed the income of all new offshore wind farm developments, and it's the same with onshore. So, development, so-called contracts for differences. You know, we heard about that before. That means, now I'll explain that. That means that if the price falls of fossil fuel electricity falls below the floor price, they get that guaranteed price. It's 76 approximately in the Republic of Ireland, and it's less in the UK because they have the pounds. But it's 76 in the Republic of Ireland. That's the floor price. So if the oil price goes below that, I've explained this several times, if the oil and gas and coal price goes below that, they get this guaranteed price. I don't like any of it, but at least that's what's struck down. And that should only be increased due to inflation. It should only be increased along with inflation for public contracts and all of that. Okay, now it says here, the contracts mean consumers pay wind farms a subsidy if market prices are low. You give them a bit extra to bring them up to the floor price. And wind farms pay back the money if they are high. So essentially they should only get that floor price irrespective of the price of fuel or the conventional energy. And in the Irish refit scheme, there's talk about ex parte and ex ante. So they get all the money in the beginning and then they fix it up after the period has closed, after the accounting period has closed. But that's what's supposed to happen. But that's not what's happening either in Ireland or in the UK. I'm 95% sure it's not happening in Ireland, and now I'm 100% sure it's not happening in the UK. So what is happening? Since the start of the energy crisis, several newly completed wind farms have delayed taking up the CFDs, the contracts for differences, pushing them back by a year from dates listed on the database of the Low Carbon Contracts Company, which manages subsidy deals for the government. So now we realise that a low carbon contract company, who are they? Would they contact me, please? Post underneath here. I want to talk to you. These are the people the government gave the job to strike out a fair deal for consumers. Right? What are they doing? There is no suggestion that the developers are doing anything wrong. Well, they're going with the regulation. The government give away it all, and they're taking it. So I suppose you can say that. There's no suggestion they're doing anything wrong. Contracts for different contracts allow delays of up to 3 years and are generally flexible and generous to developers. Why are they flexible and why are they generous to developers? Now get it simple. When they start off producing, they're protected by the floor price, but they're not obliged to enter into the contract to have some other higher price. What is this meant to be? According to this, the median price is the floor price. 76 about in Ireland, a little more, and we look for it here, what it's in Britain, it's a bit less. They're supposed to pay back this, but they will not sign the deal because they're getting the market price. And the market price in UK and Ireland is not the average of the various fuels, it's the highest in the system. It's the highest in the system. So if they only have 1 tonne of coal burned in the whole year, and coal was to go to 150 billion euros a tonne for some reason, that's what every unit of electricity would have to get, that wholesale price. I exaggerate a lot, but I'm making it quite clear. That's the situation that these people have signed. Who was buying the meals? Who was out playing golf with them? How did they come to get this deal back about 2011? And how are we paying such massive electricity charges? Why is Germany being deindustrialized? Why are pubs closing? Why are restaurants closing? Why are there massive bills coming in Ireland? Because the government that your neighbour put in are allowing this, and I don't believe it's all the Greens. I think Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in Ireland could raise this issue. There is a bill before the Dáil, but what's holding it up? There's a task force bill brought in by Independent TD. Is he Richard Donoghue or Richard Collins? Anyway, don't quote me on. There is a bill. Right, now, we're going to read on. Now, in fact, since the energy prices soared last autumn, no renewable capacity has been added to the CDF scheme. Nobody has signed up for this scheme, which would make them have a floor price, and that's it. No, they're all grabbing the higher price of fuel. Every renewable generator that has been expected to start selling at the CFD, contracts for difference, price in 2022 has now delayed it until 2023. Who allowed that? Where was that written into the contract? And they will push the date back even more. Of course they will. They'll push it back to the year 2097, when we're all dead and gone and all belong to us. That's what they're going to do. That is the level of giveaway corruption we have, right? This means power is being sold to consumers more expensively than expected, despite the government giving assurances that wind farms backed by CFDs are cheap and bring down prices. So the first lie is a wind farm can power so many homes. That's a lie. A wind farm cannot operate on its own. That's the first lie. The second lie is that wind farms bring down the cost of electricity. That's a lie, because they know well they get the fuel price. I blocked RTE television from doing this. I made a complaint and they know I'm watching them like a hawk. A direct and deliberate lie, right? So they keep saying it brings down the prices. Now you see that is not just a propaganda. That's a lie, a direct lie. The government spokesman at the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS, told GB News, this is in Great Britain, the CDF scheme has been hugely successful in boosting UK's energy supply. Of course it did. It's never implemented. What this fellow is saying is it's hugely successful. Well, why aren't they abiding by it? See the lie again. So energy supply and reducing our dependence on volatile fossil fuels, that's highly debatable. But anyway, whether it is or not, why is the price of renewable wind energy and solar energy linked to the highest fossil fuel price that there is? How is that reducing dependence on fossil fuel? I'd like him to explain that. It's a lie, of course. While cutting costs for consumers. No, it is not cutting costs for consumers. Reducing the price of offshore wind by around 65% since 2015. It would make them take the floor price. But they're not forced to take the floor price. So look what this fella is telling. And they're reading this in the newspaper, and they think that this is true. This is supposed to be a picture of a government spokesman. Would he contact me, please? Now, projects will not receive CFD payments while they are generating on market terms. Of course they won't. This silly idiots. Of course they won't. We urge companies to act fairly, beg, in the matter, recognising the public support they have received for the development. The public support is based on lies. There would be no public support if they were told the truth. Steve Baker, I'll be on to him, we'll send him an email of this video. Steve Baker, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, the Conservative MP for Wickham, told GB News that the fact BEIS has resorted to pleading with wind farms in their statement to GB News showed the system for wind regulation was failing. Do you understand that, folks? This is Steve Baker, MP, Conservative MP for Wickham, told GB News that the fact the BEIS, that's this body, has resorted to pleading with wind farms in their statement to GP News. They're using GP News to plead with wind farms, showed the system of wind farming regulation was failing. Is that not the understatement of the year? The former chair of the European Research Group said, pleading for fair play is an admission of massive regulation failure. We urgently need sensible energy policies based on free market prices, profit and losses, not the present failing tangle of state intervention. Public welfare depends on it. So this is what we need. But will we get it? Well, unless we can embarrass them into it or get them caught in some kind of a minority government, they will not do it. They will not do it. Craig McKinley, MP for South Tennant, and I think that's the seat that Nigel Farage lost to him. South Tennant. and chair of the Net Zero Scrutiny Group, told GP News the false promise of cheap renewable energy is in tatters. With ineptly agreed heads they win, tails we lose, littering UK's energy strategy. It's in tatters, he says. He's an MP, a Tory MP. He says the thing is in tatters, and he says the false promise of cheap renewable energy is in tatters. With ineptly agreed heads they win, tails you lose, littering the UK's energy strategy. Isn't that precisely what I have been singing about on here for a long, long time? If energy prices are low, CDFs mean consumers pay out to artificially increase electricity prices. If they're low, they pay the floor price, they have to bring it up. Now, artificially low energy prices. When energy prices are high, these companies hold back to permanently fix high prices for themselves. There you are. That's exactly what I've been saying in my various videos. It is a shameful racket that households are paying for all this in the name of a net zero con trick. CONTRICK. That's what the man said, Craig McKinley. In the case of Moray East, that's a big wind farm, the largest operational wind farm in Scotland, consumers will be around £500 million worse off over 12 months because of a recently revealed 12-month delay in taking up the CDFs if the market prices stay as they are. In other words, they're deciding we're not going for that deal at all. After them agreeing to it, we'll take the market price, which because of the oil crisis is a way up. Folks, am I getting across to you? I want you to all post underneath. If you don't, I'll repeat this video if I have to. This is so obviously blatant corruption. GB News has contacted developers of the wind farm, which is 57% owned by Scottish firm EDP Rendezvous. That's a French name. I'd say it's a French name. Multiple times to request an explanation for a delay. So they asked them, rang them up and said, what's the reason? We have received no reply. We have not received a reply. Am I making a good point? There is no video channel in the whole world that can explain this as good as this channel. I have to say that about my ability. And someone said there about my I could be a good lecturer. I just have the ability to get this across in an ordinary common man's way. We received no reply. we're begging. We beg them more. Enrique Alvarez, project director. So his name is Enrique Arvatez. Say he's Spanish. I mean, the first thing they try and do is give all this away to foreign companies. I'd say he is. Anyway, project director for Moray East told the offshore engineer, see, no British engineer would touch these things because they know it's a scam. Any project director for Moray East told the offshore engineer website just weeks ago on the 7th of April. I don't know why that's the 7th of April because this is a later one. I am delighted to announce that the Moray East has now achieved its full contract output of 900 megawatts. 900 megawatts. Their website reads, Moray East is a highly competitive offshore project. It sure is when you can rip off the public, which was granted consent for 1100 megawatts in 2014 by the Scottish Government. And of course, who was in there? The Scottish National Party and Nicola Sturgeon. And what has happened to their funding? What were they doing? They were supposed to be having fair. The police were in there and all this. Now, in 2017, it won a 950 megawatt contract for difference at competitive auction. Competitive. What's competitive about this? Which set the price of power generated at £57.5 sterling in 2017. That's the floor price, 57.5. That's not too high and will be delivered early in the next decade. It will be. But what's happening the existing one? What's happening the existing one? Why are they charging the market price? They will be selling power to consumers for much more than 57.5 per megawatt this year. So this year they're selling it to them at the market price. At the market price. And Net Zero Watch Andrew Montford told GB News the government has a chicken and egg problem. I know what he means by that. They said that low bidding contracts for differences wind farms will lower consumer prices. Of course they did. But no wind farm will take up the offer. With market prices so high, the government energy strategy is in tatters. Why don't they change it? Why don't they force them to enter into it? Why is it in tatters? Yesterday, it was reported that Kavi Kassing, Kwisi, Kavi, Kwrting, Secretary of State, he could be from over around Muff or Minority. Oh, Kavi, she could be one of the red jemmies. Kavi Kassing, the Secretary of State for BEIS, was seeking to pressure North Sea oil producers who have been criticised for cashing in during the energy crisis to invest their bumper profits. She wants the oil producers in the North Sea that are producing reliable, firm electricity and cars and all that to pay for the wind farms, to pay for the wind farms so they can rip them off instead of ripping off the consumer. Begging. See the begging. You see this? Oh, begging, right? You look like a leper in a Ben-Hur film, right? So this is what you hear. Let the oil crowd pay for this. Oh, it's great. This is reducing fossil fuel. Give these wind farms a Klondike. Let them break all the rules and the limits set on them and let the North Sea oil pay for it and charge that to the consumer so that the cars and the lorries have to pay for the wind farms. You see the thinking? You see the thinking. Labour, meanwhile, is calling for a windfall tax on oil firms. So here we have the wind companies ripping us off, ripping off the consumer, not abiding by the scheme, and who is going to be windfall taxed? The oil producers that are buying the oil mostly from Arab countries and from foreign countries, and which Labour or British government has no say in. And when the Scottish producer, the North Sea oil producers, what's left of them, want to make a bit of a profit now when things are high. I mean, oil was being given away free during the pandemic. They want them to, now they want them to take the profit off them and give it to the wind farms. Do you see what they're at? Labour, right? Now, wind farm developers have not faced the same level of scrutiny for their extra profits until now. So this is the thing. So now you look at Labour policy. They're calling for a windfall tax on oil firms that have done well during the crisis. No talk how they did before that. And this Mr. Kettering and the Prime Minister are opposed to a windfall tax. They don't agree with it. But you see the way the thing is. The windmills must be kept, fraudulent and all, forever. Wind farm developers have not faced the same level of scrutiny. They haven't until now, and unless I can force them, they won't do it anyway. Folks, if my video runs out, please understand, I'm getting a bit over time. Moray East supplied 1.4 million megawatts to the grid in 2021 to March 2022, and the production has increased since hitting full capacity, that's not denied, to reach £500 million extra income estimation, and the following projections and estimations were made, right? And the following projections. It is estimated the wind farm will generate 4.1 million megawatts over the coming year, assuming that the 950 megawatt capacity plant supplies 50% load factor. Well, according to John Edrington in his book, they only supply a little more than offshore wind. I would say they'll provide about 23% load factor, but we're not going to get hung up on that. If it sells this power at an average of 200 per megawatt hour, they will receive 832 million from the grid in 12 months. 852 million for the grid in 12 months, and meanwhile the grid has to keep the fossil fuel energy running. Market prices have been over 300 on given days in recent weeks, and monthly averages varied between 160 per megawatt to 200 a megawatt in the first 3 months of this year. If the plants had taken up the CFDs when expected, selling at 73.71. Now it must have been increased from that 57 to 73.71, and that would make a lot of sense with inflation. That'd be look right. So I'm giving you that. They would have received 306 million over the year, more than 525 million less than they would rake in this year selling at boom market prices. I'll read that again to you. If the plants had taken up the contracts for differences when expected, selling at 73.71, that's the guaranteed price obviously, per megawatt hour, they would have received 306 million over the year, which they've received more than 360 million over the year. More than 525 million pounds sterling less than they would rake in this year selling at booming market prices. The variables are huge, of course, and £500 million figure is just one of the many possible estimations, but it has clearly demonstrated the potential for the consumer to pay out vast sums when developers delay taking up contracts for differences. Now, folks, I think maybe I might leave that at that. I'll just pause here. Now, EirGrid sort of report this in a roundabout way, the imbalance price. But according to this, the minimum daily price is 68.82 today, and the maximum expected is 206. Latest imbalance price is 160 euros. So the UK price at the moment is around 170. Now you can see the difference. So the floor price is 75, whatever I said there, 73 something, and they're actually getting 180. Now, do you understand that? Because they refused and failed to abide by the terms of the contract, they get the market price produced for coal, oil and gas, and no remarks are passed. Okay, there it's there. You get it on that. You get it on EirGrid Smart Dashboard. Okay. Now, I'm caught for time, so the Global Warming Policy Foundation, and I'll put a link to it or under, makes the point that this is not cheap at all, that the whole thing is a complete and utter lie. A complete and utter lie. In fact, if you read the small print, renewable advocates are only saying that wind farms coming on stream after 2018 will be cheap. But we know that this is not true. Wind farm developers announced their budget before the start work. So we can see that almost all forthcoming developments are just as expensive as anything built in the last 2 years. And there's a graph here showing it and all. We'll not go into it now. This is a very long video. This is the best evidence of the racket that they're at. They set a price, they lie, they say, look at, if the price is above it, oh, it's good, it'll be great, it'll do this and that and the other. And then when the price goes above, they pay them the oil price, and they lie then by saying that the floor price is good value, we're doing well, and that's great. When in fact that's a lie. They've allowed the developers to take the higher price of coal, oil and gas as the price goes up into as long as ever they like. They're saying there'll be a limit. Who's going to make the limit? If Labour gets in, they'll give them a complete blank check until they crash the economy. If the Tories are there might be some chance of a bit of a check on them. I don't know. Meanwhile, it's reported the British economy is failing. It's not going that well. The bond market is in tatters, and I might deal with that again. And Germany is in the same way. They're blaming Brexit. Blaming Brexit for the British economy's decline, when in fact the German EU economy and the French economies are equally declining. And it's this mad idiocy about trying to power your grid from the wind and the sun and paying them Klondikes to do such a ridiculous, foolhardy thing that has brought their economies to their knees. And it'll go on until they're eating out of dustbins. It will go on until they're eating out of dustbins. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You may watch this in pieces. This is a very good video. I've proven my point. They've given all away. And most of it to foreign firms and pensions being drawn abroad for people that wouldn't have a Rex or would have nothing to live on when they retire. And they've given the wee bit of wealth we have away, and it's the same in Ireland. Folks, bye-bye, and thank you very much. It's a very sad situation, but we can at least, they can't do it unbeknownst to us. Thank you.